Find out crime doesn't pay. Join Jason Esty as he dissects various. Throughout human history, one thing has been a constant: crime. There are many types of crimes committed and many types of investigators who look into them. Criminals get very creative to stay ahead of the law. Find out crime doesn't pay. Join Jason Esty as he dissects various crimes, mysteries, and disappearances.
Crime Maze.
Hello, everybody. This is Jason Esty here, also known as ESTEY'S Crime Maze. I just got to bring myself on screen here. There we go. Hello. Thank you for joining me, everybody. I really appreciate it. Today, I want to talk about Devil's Advocates, as I've been a regular guest at times on his show. I am thankful. I will always have gratitude that Mr. DA, also known as Lee at Devil's Advocates, he had the courtesy to think of me and consider me as a guest, as one of the guests on his show, along with, of course, he's got the New York cop, police officer over there as one of the guests. He's also got Joe from State of the Deep over there. We also have, of course, he's got Robin, the amazing co-producer, and it all starts with Devil's Advocates. So he invited me. He likes my vibe. He's always said that. He likes my energy, my presentation, and my charisma, if I may say. That's what he says. And I'm thankful. I think I have some charisma. But today I wanted to do this live because, first of all, I want to give credit to DA because, again, he has shown the balls and the cock swagger, actual courage in a way, to allow me and Joe from Stay the Deep, he's right there with me in a lot of what I have to say on the extraction removal operation. That this whole crime scene of the IDAHO4, it's largely been staged, my friends, right? There's no evidence. Absolutely. By the way, can you guys hear me? I hope as I'm talking here, you can hear me. This live isn't going to be too long because many of you that have been watching my videos, or if you've seen me on Devil's Advocates in the last few weeks, you know I've got a serious injury that I re-aggravate. I'm trying to heal it, okay? But as I was saying, my friends, anybody should be able to know now, in my opinion, that this was a staged crime scene, that the feds have basically staged a violent event. Because there's no evidence. DA can't show it, as far as I can tell. Of course, nobody can show. And he's got Dago on now as one of the regular guests as well. DA and Dago and nobody else, they can't show you any concrete evidence that those students were actually killed. Right, everyone? We get, oh, hello, Queen Denial. Queen Denial. Good energy, Esty. You're plenty loud. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. By the way, if you enjoy my videos and enjoy my lives and in my interviews, etc., please subscribe to my channel, would you? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, I'd appreciate it. It all helps with the algorithms after all. Hit the bell icon. You be notified for future videos, right? And feel free to leave me a comment. I read them. Okay, and feel free to share my videos. We're almost at 800 subscribers. And that's another, I want to give another thank you to DA. I've thanked him many times. He's helped promote my channel just by having me on his show, but he's promoted ESTEY'S Crime Maze. He's helped me build up a substantial amount more subscribers, and I really appreciate it. And I have a lot of fun overall on Devil's Advocate show. But the reason why I'm doing this live, my friends, unfortunately, and I thought it's important to talk about on my channel because for some reason, Devil's Advocates, and I got to wonder, I mean, did somebody get to DA? I hope not. Did somebody get to my friend DA? Because DA seems to be having his guard up now. It's almost like he's pulling the plug, like he doesn't want me or anybody else really apparently to talk about the extraction removal operation, unless I'm misunderstanding. But what DA told me in so many words was, and I can understand part of why he says this, but he said he doesn't want the whole show to be on the extraction removal operation, you know. Um, and we're never going to do a whole show on this, but I think it's DA realized that it was important to, from time to time, to try to connect the dots, allow me to connect the dots that this was a staged crime scene, folks. There's no evidence that the students were killed. And as I said before, and DA knows they're in the WITSEC program, man, the Federal Witness Security Program, right? The Witness Relocation Identity. My friends, these infrastructures and laws are in place. So all it took, my friends, I believe a confidential informant living at 1122 King Road was probably compromised. Maybe one of the girls spoke too much, her cover was blown. And then, my friends, legally under USC Code 31, as I've talked about many times, the feds can legally stage a violent event. Think about this quadruple homicide, right? Did you, by the way, my friends, I love talking about this on DA show and my channel. As I ask a 1-1 and DA and Joe from State of the Deep and Robin, did we see an open public casket ceremony for any of the victims? Of course, they have to say no, right? We didn't. We're supposed to believe, oh, it's just a coincidence they were cremated. Horse shit. Did we see body bags? You know, I got a little bit of bone to pick with Dago, respectfully, because Dago, I love the fact that he said he's former EMS, okay? Now, he claims that in some of his calls, sometimes, this is apparently what he saw, sometimes they will, I guess he was implying they'll cover up the victims and they will not put them in body bags to be shown by the public because they don't want the parents, say, of the victims to see their faces or their bodies. But my friends, how often does that happen? That would be very, very seldom. In a quadruple homicide, and I've talked to other EMS people, my friends, you better believe, they tell me, you would have seen body bags of a quadruple homicide coming out of that house if it really happened. We didn't see any body bags, my friends, right? And not only that, as I like to say on DA's show as well, in almost every high profile case, my friends, and this I think shows it was a staged crime scene. In almost every high profile case, we know that you're almost always going to get leaked raw crime scene photos, right? Or you're going to get leaked autopsy photos. And then Nancy Grace, right? And Ashley Banfield, the likes of them, you know, that, what's that goofball's name? In my opinion, he's a clown. I can't believe I forget his name. DA's mentioned him. He's over on Fox or something. He's got his own YouTube channel now. I mean, I forget his name. Anyway, all these people, my friends, they would have carried these leaked crime scene photos, right, to make it even more salacious of this quadruple homicide if it really happened. But again, my friends, we didn't see anything, right? Nothing. Instead, what we got was all these sealed records, right? Everybody was wondering why all the secrecy, right? Why all the sealed records? Why the lack of transparency? Well, in part, my friends, because I'm convinced there was no crime scene. The U.S. Marshals literally extracted most likely all 4 of those students, my friends. I think the facts are basically black and white now. We just won't see the students. But they're off in a WITSEC program. This is the great news, as I've always said. They're in witness relocation, my friends. They're probably in Puerto Rico. They're on a beach somewhere. Or we would have seen, again, those raw crime scene photos. We would have seen leaked autopsy photos. You would have had the coroner, when she went to the house that night or early morning, my friends, the coroner would have told everybody to back off. The coroner would have did her job, but she didn't. Where were the ambulances? I'd like to ask Dago that, right? If a crime scene took place, why didn't we see or hear of EMS ambulances and emergency personnel? Apparently there was nothing. Was there, my friends? I don't think there was anything. Yeah, Enton, thank you. Queen Denial says Enton, that Brian Enton, I believe. He's just more CIA nonsense, in my opinion. He's been caught, in my opinion, in lies and deception in this case. And he's just got a narrative to push, my friends. But again, my friends, this is what I would ask DA from time to time. Or maybe I won't ask DA like this, but DA, he seems to have chosen in one way, like DA, I love the fact that his whole channel largely is about going against the narrative of the FBI CIA with the IDAHO4. But the one part that DA does go with the narrative of CIA, FBI, and the feds is that he believes that, okay, no, the students were probably killed. Really? Really? I don't think so. And I think it needs to be talked about more on a big show like DA on Devil's Advocates. And again, Joe, I'm not the only one. Joe from Stay the Deep, he makes an amazing positive contribution in terms of the extraction removal staged operation theory in this huge cover up. It's the only thing that really makes sense in this case, doesn't it, my friends? Right? Um, Christy said she doesn't want you talking like that. Who talking like that? Christy said she doesn't want you talking like that. Who's Christy? And we got it. Here's a comment, my friends. This is why I want to get back on DA's show. By the way, it's been my choice that I've been off Devil's Advocate show for I think over a week now, and I've maybe averaged maybe once a week at that because of my intercostal injury. Okay, so hopefully I'll be back on DA's show very soon. I hopped on his chat page briefly last night. Even though 9 o'clock sometimes even gets a little bit late for me, especially with an injury. But Missy Childress, my friends, I think she left a ridiculous comment here. This is why I want to be back on the DA show with the guests and DA, because Missy Childress says, I was wondering why you hadn't been on. I'm going to assume it's your views on the situation. Oh, that's not a bad comment by Missy Childress. But here's her other comment that I have issues with. She says, but after the new video and audio, I'm hearing them say KG is dead. You might want to rethink your hypothesis. I think you were awesome guy. Oh, thank you. I didn't know that, Missy Childress, that you said that. I'm sad to see you are no longer on DA. Oh, I guess I don't have a problem with that comment after all, Missy Childress. I must have misread it wrong before. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. But that's the thing, everyone. Missy Childress, where is the video and audio that shows evidence that KG is dead? That meaning Kaylee Gonzalez, let alone Madison Mogan, her best friend, right? Or Ethan Chapman, or Xander Canoodle. And again, my friends, let's use reason, logic, common sense. As I've said on DA's show, and I think it's worth repeating, I normally don't believe Steve G in half the things he says. I think he's a Fed himself. I think he's probably pushed by the FBI, CIA to put out a certain narrative, clearly. Okay. The guy doesn't even cry in his interviews, doesn't even break down. But I believe Steve G when he told you in interviews, sometimes they say too much, the parents, my friends, in my opinion, but I'm glad they do. Steve G told us, he said that the feds had surveillance around 1122 King Road, the house. And thus they would have had surveillance all over the neighborhoods, ring cameras, you name it. And by the way, my friends, speaking of that, remember I said there was no leaked raw crime scene photos to this day, authentic raw crime scene photos of those students, dying, being stabbed, this tragedy we're supposed to believe. No leaked autopsy photos. What was I going to say? Speaking of which, my friends, no security camera footage, right, showing assailants going in the house the night of the crime, supposed crime, and no college students took any pictures of the bodies. You better believe, as many people told me, you had college students all over the place during the 911 call, whether it be Bill and Bethany, Hunter Johnson, other people. You don't think college students would have taken pictures of the blood at least all over that house to show their friends? Of course they would, my friends. Of course some college students would have taken photos with their cell phone. But we didn't see it in this case, my friends, because reason, logic, common sense to infer It didn't happen. It didn't happen, my friends. And this is all great news. Those students, in my opinion, are alive. They are absolutely alive. And who rescued them? Reason, logic, common sense, my friends. The U.S. Marshals. They did their job. Absolutely. They did a very secret covert operation. And it was probably pre-planned. Like I said on my channel and over on DA show, it was probably pre-planned because we know that Christy G admitted that Kaylee, her daughter, her lovely daughter, Kaylee Gonzalez, photobombed her mom the day before. Why would Kaylee give all her photos to her mother just the day before a so-called tragedy where we no longer see her? Right? Because I think it was pre-planned. The feds absolutely knew, the U.S. Marshals, they knew the threat assessment was high at that stage. They knew there were probably assailants that wanted it out for one or more of those victims. So naturally, the U.S. Marshals got them the hell out of there, my friends, an extraction. It's that simple. Do you guys have any issues with what I'm saying right now? I know a lot of people agree with me. Thank you for being here, by the way. Again, Queen Denial. Thank you for being here, T. Coon. Thank you for being here. Where's everybody else? Let's see here. Thank you, Phoenix Rising here. Excellent. Tikkun, you are correct. Christy demanded it. Right on, right on. Happy New Year, of course, to all of you. Phoenix Rising, 214. Happy, joyous New Year. I hope you have a great one. I sincerely mean that. I hope you were able to enjoy your Christmas. I know a lot of things are going on. Paint Dessert 77. I hope all of you had a great Christmas and New Year as well. Paint Dessert 77 says, I'm with there drinking pina coladas with Charlie somewhere. Sorry, she says, I am with you. They're drinking pina coladas with Charlie somewhere. Exactly. Are you, looks like, I think it's a guy picture. Painted Dessert 77. Interesting. Yeah, Charlie Kirk, he's alive too, my friends. You know, on DA's show, DA likes to focus on Tyler Robinson, the shooter. But I think we should also focus on, well, wait a sec, Charlie Kirk. I'm going to do whole videos on this, my friends. I did it over on TikTok. I got 200, I think over 275,000 or 280,000 views. It went viral, thankfully. And I tried to connect the dots that the whole thing was staged. Again, Charlie Kirk was a rich boy. Nobody took him out. It's all staged. He's alive. He's probably in Valhalla in New Zealand. And we got to provide truth and transparency, folks. Otherwise, the feds are going to just try to pull the wool over the public's eyes. They're on a roll right now where they're conducting PSYOP after PSYOP after PSYOP. They're conducting all these different violent events. The Charlie Kirk one, right? Another staged violent event, in my opinion. They staged the IDAHO4, in my opinion, a totally staged violent event. And I believe, I'm starting to think that even Brian Thompson, yeah, I'm convinced he's even alive. He's in the WITSEC program. Remember, everyone, we didn't see any blood from Brian Thompson. He just happens to, to go in a culvert where there's shadows and you don't even see the guy. It was all staged. And why would Brian Thompson, the CEO of healthcare, the evil healthcare, who comes out of a huge business meeting, he knows his life is potentially in danger. Why wouldn't he come out with bodyguards? Because it was all staged, my friends. The feds have probably orchestrated the whole thing with Brian Thompson, and now he'll be in a WITSEC program, okay? And then the CIAF, the feds just put these actors largely involved in the case, right? I'm also starting to think that, the Sheriff Steins, who, we're supposed to believe he shot the judge 8 times on video camera, but there's no blood. My friends, there's no blood. And the judge has major connections. The judge is going to have protection himself. He's not going to be murdered by a sheriff, I don't think. They're all in on it, my friends. It was all an act job. It was probably all acting. I could be wrong in that case, but I think most likely that judge he's alive too, my friends. Or we would have seen blood, wouldn't we? There would have been blood spray. Come on. And you got the judge trying to hide under the table and all this. It's probably all acting. I'm starting to think that for that case too. But certainly the IDAHO4, in my opinion, the students are alive. The only blood we ever saw we're supposed to believe it's real blood from victims, but it was the red on the foundation of the house for the IDAHO4, right, everyone? At 1122 King Road. But guess what, my friends? If that was real blood from actual victims, students stabbed to death, do you think that forensic teams would allow that blood to be on the foundation of the house day after day after day? The answer is no, right, everyone? Talk to any forensic investigators. They would tell you they would have had to wipe that blood within days. It would be a health hazard. But we didn't see that for the IDAHO4, my friends, right? Because the feds, they were conducting psychological operations, and it confused me for the first half year as well. They had to put something in front of our eyes to make you think that those students were stabbed to death. That's why they left probably pig's blood or paint on the foundation of the house. I think they left it on for weeks, didn't they, folks? Weeks. That's crazy. Even DA, I'm sure in 1-1 and Joe from State of the Deep and Robin, they'd have to admit, and Dago, yeah, that's crazy that you would leave actual blood on the foundation of the house for weeks on end. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? If it was a real crime scene, folks, you better believe forensics would have washed that away. And I've heard one other YouTuber mention that briefly in so many words too, and they're correct. So, and I'm not a forensic investigator or scientist, but you better believe, my friends, they would wash that away. I mean, anybody we could talk to forensic investigators, I'm sure they'll say that, right? It's reason, logic, common sense. Paint Dessert 77 says Valhalla has a WPP, a witness protection program. Really? Can you verify that for me, Paint Dessert 77? Because I keep forgetting to do some hardcore research on whether Valhalla has a witness protection program. You know, in other words, a WITSEC program, WITEC as well. Please check that out. Anybody who can validate that would be great. So I could maybe even talk about that on the DA show. You know, we got to bring it home, my friends. Okay. And Devil's Advocates, respectfully, he can disagree with me if he wants. I don't think he can back up that these students were actually killed, but he can roll with that, and that's fine. We can all have different theories. DA's doing really good on getting, all these documents. He's trying to bring truth and transparency in different ways on the IDAHO4, which is great. By the way, everyone, go over to DA's show. You'll find out all the different things that Lee has filed for in trying to get more information on the IDAHO4 case, folks. It's pretty remarkable. So, by the way, everyone, I meant to say this near the beginning of this live. Please support Devil's Advocate show, not just because I've been on the show before, even though I haven't been on in over a week. Hopefully, DA and I do not have a falling out. Hopefully, we can talk through our differences. But please subscribe over to Devil's Advocates, folks, if you're a true crime junkie, because I really believe that Lee, the co-producer, Robin, in her own ways, doing amazing work as well. Of course, 1-1 is one of the regular guests. Joe from Stay the Deep, another regular guest. Now we got Dago over there. They're doing amazing work, folks. Devil's Advocates, I truly believe, is the best and the most riveting, most stupendous true crime channel out there. That's some of the adjectives I like to use for Devil's Advocates. So please subscribe. Think about supporting this guy. Maybe even make a donation. He's got great merch, folks. He's shown his lovely wife demonstrating wearing the merch at times. Beautiful sweaters, hoodies, hats. I don't have any because I got my own merch. But no, Devil's Advocates, he's the real deal, folks. And the reason why I say he's the real deal in this aspect, I want to remind you, he had the cock swagger and the courage, the balls to actually allow me to try to connect those dots, to talk about, wait a sec, I think it's a real possibility those students were extracted by the U.S. Marshals, most likely, and they're off in another country, most likely, and they're protected. It's called the Federal Witness Security Program or the Federal Witness Relocation Program, folks. These are real programs, real infrastructure, and it's for people that are wanted dead. Nobody denies that one or more of those students must have been wanted dead by somebody. We don't know who. Maybe gangbangers, cartel members. Certainly not a Brian Koberger if you use half a brain, right? So who wanted them dead? Well, my friends, the more important question I think is, where are those students? Are they really dead? Did the U.S. Marshals rescue those students in the cover of darkness? Was this all pre-planned? I believe the answer is yes, my friends. Yes, it was pre-planned. Yes, the U.S. Marshals most likely rescued those students, and the rest is a cover-up. That's why, my friends, we can tell it was a staged crime scene. Don't you agree, my friends? It was a staged crime scene. And I haven't even gotten to the fact that I talked about this briefly on DA show a few times, everyone. I think it's worth repeating. Remember when I guess it was a week or two later or several weeks later, they loaded a mattress. So we're supposed to believe it was maybe Kaylee or Maddie's mattress, most likely. They loaded a mattress on like a hillbilly truck with half of it hanging out. Even DA laughed at this, and one and Robin, I believe, she laughed too, and Joe from Stay the Deep, because it's so ridiculous. I think even I mentioned it once with Dago on. I think he chuckled because it's so crazy. They loaded a mattress, again, supposed to be from one of the victims, because half of it's hanging out and it's got blood on it. And it's got like a mattress just a mattress cover on part of the mattress. And so it's like the feds are trying to show us on purpose that, look, the students were stabbed to death. You got to believe our psyop here. The students are really dead, and we're going to just cover the mattress haphazard, put it in like a hillbilly truck. My friends, real crime scenes of a quadruple homicide, you know that wouldn't happen, folks, right? You don't have to be a scientist or forensic investigator or cop to understand that, right, folks? So that shows, again, it was a staged crime scene, in my opinion. Wouldn't you agree? I'm interested in who wanted them dead, Queen Denial says. Exactly. I don't have the answer for that. I really don't. But all I would say on that is that we know that by the feds staging this crime scene, I believe, staging this violent event, and again, legally they can do this, folks. USC Code 31. Think about that. Okay. They can legally stage a violent event. They can actually stage deaths. Hello. Yes, they can delete somebody, stage one or more people's deaths, my friends. I think that's the IDAHO4 in a nutshell, folks. Okay. So we know that by staging the violent event, if I'm correct, and I think it's pretty clear as day now, but by doing that, they were successful, my friends. The FBI, elements of the CIA, the feds, the local law enforcement that are in on this, the drug task force, to some degree, they were all successful, my friends, in staging this violent event. And why do I say that? Because we know, what is it, a month or two later, the feds did the major drug bust in Washington State, my friends, right? So they got the 4 students out of the house safely, I believe, under a witness relocation protection security program, right? They're out of the country, and they continued on with their secret drug investigations. And then they use CIA through corporate media to try to brainwash the public, and they have to use the parents, in my opinion, my friends. They had to use these parents who were lousy actors, in my opinion, even though they probably had training, but they used the parents to try to put out this ridiculous, highly charged narrative. Oh, yeah. Remember Steve from the get-go says they didn't have to go upstairs, meaning to kill his daughter, I guess, right? And Maddie, he didn't have to go upstairs. And he still thinks that Brian Koberger stabbed his daughter to death, and Maddie and 6'3", 6'4" Ethan Chapman and Xander Canoodle. So we're supposed to believe everything Steve G says? Are you kidding me? In my opinion, Steve G would absolutely know that Brian Koberger could not have done this crime, didn't do the crime. And Steve G, my friends, he knows that there was no crime. He knows his daughter's alive, in my opinion. And he's collected, what, $175,000 at least from the naive public? And he's doing renovations. And don't you think, my friends, a lot of the money that Steve G's receiving is probably going to go to his daughter, who's alive, and Maddie too? Absolutely, my friends. That's the real reality, I believe, most likely of this case. So, but if you want to send your money to Steve G, go ahead. That's your prerogative. But I'd be very careful. Painted Dessert 77 says, Google Valhalla, New Zealand. Tyler had it on his computer and one of his first pictures. Exactly. I knew that, Painted Dessert 77. I'd like to say that on the DA show, and you could comment that as well. Because DA loves to focus on Tyler Robinson. And I would say, hey, DA, Devil's Advocates, did you know that Tyler had the picture in front of his laptop computer of Valhalla, specifically Goat Island? That's Valhalla in New Zealand. Do you think Tyler's there? Or do you think Charlie Kirk is in Valhalla? I think Charlie Kirk was in Valhalla. Maybe he's relocated somewhere to another country now. But Charlie Kirk is probably still in Valhalla, my friends. You don't have to be played by this nonsense. Let's tell the truth, my friends. Give our opinions, but I think it's the truth. Mimi422 says, I pray you're right. I've never seen a crime scene treated like this before, ever. I wish I knew for a fact, because as we all know, nothing is nori in this case. No real emotions. Yeah, nothing is normal in this case. No real emotions from the get-go. Exactly. Love that comment. Yeah, I think I'm right. And again, my friends, nobody, if you want to say those students were stabbed to death or you believe that, all these YouTube creators, even the amazing DA, they can't really back it up because there's no raw crime scene photos to show the students were stabbed to death, right? No leaked autopsy photos. We literally have to believe the reports coming out from the coroner. Come on, folks, right? The coroner, she didn't even do her due diligence, her job on the night of the so-called atrocity, right? She would have kicked out half the cops and done her job. So there's all kinds of questions about this coroner. She's in on the whole fucking cover-up, in my opinion, folks. Come on. Otherwise, we would have got leaked autopsy photos, most likely. Come on, right? And again, we could go on and on. Why put the mattress in a hillbilly truck with just a mattress cover and blood shown on the mattress? Do you do that in a quadruple homicide investigation when you remove shit? And I mean, again, we could go on and on, my friends. Remember, Birdie, he discovered that on the boxes, as they're moving the victims' things out in these boxes, it said North American Relocation Services. Okay? And then the company went down within 24, 48 hours, seemingly. Now, many of you will say, well, Jason, ESTEY'S Crime Maze, North American Relocation Services. Okay, it sounds a bit odd, but it's probably just a moving company. They're moving the victims' things out. Okay. What if I told you, just like Birdie showed you a few months ago, but he's not telling you anymore for some reason. Birdie's gotten off the extraction removal operation. By the way, Birdie turned me down 3 times for an interview. He strung me along and he turned me down. Why? I hope Birdie will show the balls and the gumption like his buddy DA did and actually have me on for an interview. And I'll treat Birdie with respect. I think we can knock it out of the park. I'm convinced we could do an epic live, Birdie and I. But let's see if Birdie will do it. Come on, Birdie. Show some courage, dude. Let's talk about PSYOPs. Let's talk about the Whitsick angle. I'll give you credit and a lot of your information during our live together as well. And I'll add you, and I'll give the audience my 2 takes. Okay? So anyway, again, I got to give credit to DA, my friends. He's one of the few YouTube creators that had me on to talk about the extraction removal operation, that the students are most likely alive, in my opinion. And the late Tommy Jude, remember him, my friends, from Once Upon a Crime Time. He's no longer with us. Unfortunately, he died. His spirit has moved on. But Tommy Jude, to his credit, Tommy Jude did a one-on-one interview with me and allowed me to talk about this extraction removal operation. And I think you could tell Tommy was agreeing with a lot of what I was saying. So Tommy Jude showed some real balls as well. But again, recently I want to give credit to DA for having the balls as well and showing real cockswagger. So hopefully DA is not going to shut down the dialogue, the openness here of talking about a possible Whitsick angle with these 4 students, you know, because I really believe they're probably relocated. Again, let's talk about it. You don't think there was a staged crime scene? I just showed you, my friends. It had to have been a staged crime scene. There was all kinds of staging, right? Let's talk about it. and hopefully I could talk about in the DA show. By the way, if I come back on the DA show as a guest, I'm going to do a very fun thing. If DA, Robin, 1-1, and Joe from Stay the Deep, if they agree to this, I don't want to give it away what I'm going to do to them, but I want to play a game. And it's going to be asking them a few questions, very short to the point. And I think it'll be a lot of fun for the audience. I don't want to give it away any more than what I've just said, but hopefully we could do that. And I think we can get a great response on the DA show. So that's all I want to say there. Now, somebody just left this comment, folks. I want to read this. Queen Denial also says, well, first they were stabbed in their sleep. Then the story was everyone fighting and this and that and the other person involved. Then they added a K-bar, then a gun, then an axe, then experimental. Exactly. I mean, it's so wild, right? Queen Denial, you're right. Queen Denial, you're right on the money. They keep changing the narrative, that being CIA, FBI with the feds, right? They got to keep changing the narrative because nothing fits. They're trying to flood the zone, add confusion, in my opinion, right? And get you away and distracted from the truth. And my friends, I think it's pretty obvious that Steve G, Christy G, Olivia Gonzalez, the daughter, I think a lot of times that their job is to try to shape in public opinion and behavior to lie, deny, and deceive you, the public, quite a lot in this case. I think it's clear as day. And I think all you have to do is look at Olivia Gonzalez's performance, you know, pretending that she thinks that she's convinced that Brian Koberger is the most evil man in the world, that she's convinced that Brian Koberger somehow pulled off a quadruple homicide. I mean, are you kidding me? Right? Are you kidding me? And then, you know, I got a bone again to pick with Dago because Dago, as a former EMS, it was very interesting to get his perspective, and I thanked him in real time there on a show, I think over a week ago. But Dago, he went by reports that reportedly they set up a tent, meaning the feds, right? A few nights later or something, didn't they? That reportedly they set up a tent, and that's why we didn't see the body bags coming out because they set up a tent for privacy because I think Dago was implying they didn't want the parents to see all the damage basically inflicted on the victims. And I would say, really? Well, first of all, any reporting we can't believe in half the time in the IDAHO4 case. Again, my friends, if there was a real quadruple homicide, you better believe you would have seen body bags coming out of there. There's no reason not to have body bags. The parents are still not going to see their victims with stabs all over the place because you just put them in a body bag, or I'm sure one would tell you like a sheet over the victims, right? I mean, this is reason, logic, common sense. And Dago did say, of course, eventually they taped off the crime scene. Well, yeah, that's all staging, I believe. That's all part of the act. There was no real crime scene. And I think Dago, my friends, he almost contradicts himself because I asked him some really important questions. And to his credit, though, he admits those are good questions. He doesn't have an answer to some of those questions. I don't have an answer. If it was a real crime scene, these questions would be answered, right, folks? Am I making sense? I hope I am. So I hope I can maybe do a one-on-one interview with Dago sometime, if Dago will have me on his show, and I will be honored. Okay. So that's my feeling there. But I like seeing Dago also live on Devil's Advocate show, especially when I'm on live with them. Cocktail Swagger, Painted Dessert 77 says, yes, exactly. Mimi422 says, Birdie has talked about the same thing. Yes. And Mimi422, apparently, you're probably watching a lot of Birdie's videos. Maybe you could reach out to Birdie and maybe have some of your friends also reach out to Birdie and challenge Birdie respectfully and say, look, this Estes Crimeates, he wants to collaborate with others. He wants to do some more interviews. He's been interviewed by Tommy Jude. Tommy Jude interviewed Birdie. Tommy Jude, again, gave me a chance to be interviewed as well, talking extraction removal operation, the IDAHO4. I've been interviewed by, well, there's Outcast 404. He still wants to interview me, and I want to do an interview with him eventually. But unfortunately, it goes on too late. So I haven't been able to prove to stay up late enough to really have a high energy interview yet with Outcast 404. I think it's 404. Outcast, please support this guy, my friends. He has a great channel. He did an amazing edited baby video that I put on my channel as well. He did that for myself. We showed that on the DA show where I challenged Jay Embry, and Outcast has myself as a baby, and he has Pavarotti, Jay Embry, as a baby as well. It's hilarious, folks, and we're talking, and I'm challenging Jay Embry to an interview. You see, my friends, unlike devil's advocates, and Birdie does interviews as well, even though Birdie, again, he turned me down 3 times, or he strung me along. He said he would do an interview. I know shit happens. So I'll try to give the benefit of the doubt to Birdie there. But Birdie, where are you, dude? I've sent you emails. I got your emails. Let's do an interview together, please. Okay? I've asked you nicely. Let's do this. All right? On the IDAHO4, your favorite topic, dude. But you see, my friends, so many YouTube creators, or some of them, they don't even do interviews. Pavarotti, Jay Embry, he's done hundreds of videos. And I kept challenging, why aren't you doing interviews, Jay Embry? You should be doing interviews, in my opinion. Have open debate. So what has he done? He does a 3-hour interview with Lana from Truth and Transparency. And Lana does some good work. Apparently, that Lana, though, doesn't want to talk about, well, wait a sec. The evidence shows it was a staged crime scene, right? Lana will never tell you, apparently, well, wait a sec. Under USC Code 31 in her country of the United States, the amazing United States, the feds can actually stage a violent event. They can actually stage deaths. How about telling the public that, Lana, of Truth and Transparency, if you really want to bring truth and transparency to this case, and not to mention other true crime cases? Shouldn't you be talking about that? Shouldn't you be talking about, well, wait a sec, it sure as hell looked like a staged crime scene from the get-go. Come on. So, and then I heard Jay Embry, he talked for, I think, the first half hour at least on him and Lana, maybe even the first hour. They're going on and on about Brian Koberger's car. And I would say, well, who gives a shit really about the car? Talk about the real truth of the staged crime scene, that the students are most likely alive. Hello. So that's why I got an issue with Jay Embry. And that's why I just simply want to interview Jay Embry, or be on his show, preferably. And let's do it. Let's have a collaboration there, Jay Embry, or open debate, dude. Let's see if your audience agrees with you that an atrocity actually took place. Because again, my friends, this Pavarotti, you got to laugh. He keeps going on and on almost every video. Seemingly, he's trying to convince you, but with no evidence to support it, he's going along with FBI, CIA, Fed narrative that the students were killed. Really? Where's the evidence that they were really killed, Jay Embry? And then Jay Embry will go by reports or, some court docs and all this shit. Well, where's the leaked raw crime scene photos, Jay Embry? Where's the leaked autopsy photos? We would have received that. Where's any photos from the students that would have taken blood? Why didn't the students mention blood during the 911 call? There was blood all over inside the house, folks. The students were in the house during the 911 call, some of them. Why wouldn't they be reporting blood? Or when they walk back out of the house? They would have, my friends, if there was real blood crime scene. Come on, folks, right? Those are the things that apparently Jay Embry doesn't want to talk about. He doesn't want his narrative potentially blown out of the water. The real truth of the IDAHO4. And Jay Embry could prove me wrong. Let's have an interview, Jay Embry. And when I get this healed, yeah, we could still do my challenge 2 of the charity boxing match. That's right. Anyway, my friends, I better stop talking or I'm going to aggravate this intercostal injury more a little bit potentially. So I don't want to do that. We're going to wind down this live, but thank you, my friends. I see we got 20,000 people that joined me on the live. Just kidding. 20 people or more. That's great, though. I haven't done a live in a long time. Probably not many people knew I was about to do a live, even though I tried to put some notice out there. Phoenix Rising says, Painted Dessert 77, you have me rolling, XO. Yeah. By the way, Phoenix Rising, without saying too much, I wish you nothing but success moving forward, and especially with your creative endeavors and on social media, all that good stuff. And with whatever you're doing in life, I want you to be happy, just like everybody else here on, of course, on my live. I want everybody to have an amazing, spectacular 2026. Um, with growth and happiness, everything. Okay. I really mean that. Now we got 21 people on here. I should keep talking for another hour. Maybe we'll get a couple hundred people on. By the way, DA's channel is really growing, folks. He's on a roll right now, and Robin, the amazing co-producer as well, and the guests. So please, my friends, DA's doing great work overall. We don't always have to agree, but DA, I hope you'll consider supporting his channel, consider subscribing, give him a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Um, and he's got a great audience overall. And hopefully, I'll be back on the show, my friends. I might even be in good condition to be back on the show Tuesday if DA will have me on. We'll knock it out of the park. And I just want DA to know right now, DA, you were worried that you didn't want the whole show or you didn't want to do a 40 minutes on the extraction removal operation. Okay, I get it, dude. But when you talk about a staged crime scene with the IDAHO4, it's not something that we can just finish in 5 or 10 minutes. And Joe from Stay the Deep, he puts his input as well. That's why we can easily talk about it for 15, 20 minutes. We could talk about it for a whole hour if we were allotted the time. And it's important, my friends. We've got to talk about this alternative theory. What if those 4 students are actually alive and they're in witness relocation? Why wouldn't the U.S. Marshals have rescued these students? They had surveillance. Steve G admitted they had surveillance around the house, my friends. I totally believe Steve G. He had no reason to lie to you there. He probably told you too much. Okay? So the U.S. Marshals, my friends, come on, they would have had commercial, what's it called? Um, Commercial, ongoing pattern surveillance. I'm butchering it. There's a certain wording there. Progressive commercial, some sort of type of surveillance, my friends, where they would even probably have the phones tapped at 1122 King Road. They knew what was going on with those students by and large, my friends. They knew any threat level. Oh, sorry, they would have had, I believe it's called commercial passive monitoring surveillance on that house, my friends, and what was going on. Okay, and other surveillance too. They would have had hard surveillance. They would have been tracking their bank records. That's part of what this type of commercial monitoring surveillance is all about, my friends. So again, my friends, please don't think, again, if these 4 students, if somehow assailants were able to stab to death all 4 healthy students, you would have to believe, in my opinion, that the U.S. Marshals are stupid, are lazy, man, that they don't even do their job. Of course, the U.S. Marshals, my friends, they're not going to allow, they would have known the threat level. Even DA brought up the threat level that they probably had. They were monitoring the threat level around the house. But DA, he only asked the question, did they not, is it possible that I think DA was implying that they didn't, I'm stuttering here, that they didn't recognize the threat level, I think what DA was implying. And so thus the students were killed. And then there was this massive cover up. Well, DA, I would ask you, dude, and on your show, maybe, DA, or if you were on my show, I'd ask you this. Well, what about the other question? How about the question is, how could the U.S. Marshals allow victims to be stabbed to death when they knew and would have known the threat level accurately? They probably had a confidential informant at 1122 King Road, probably killing Gonzalez. Could have been one of the others as well. Could have been even the survivors, Bethany and Dylan, although I don't think there are any victims, but you know what I'm saying. And so, how could the U.S. Marshals just stand by and allow assailant or assailants to go in that house untouched, do stabbings, killing 4 victims, and get out clean? It's impossible. The U.S. Marshals wouldn't have allowed it. They would have done a pre-planned extraction removal operation, in my view. And I don't think you can argue this at this point, my friends. I really don't. I don't think logically, anyway. I guess, yeah, Phoenix Rising. Glad she's laughing at Painted Dessert 77. You have me rolling, EXO. There we go. So thank you for being here, everybody. I really appreciate it. Somebody says, Ivy Light says, Dago talks out both sides of mouth. I'm not going to say anything negative about Dago. Dago's a good guy, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I appreciate all of your comments, folks. Um, Chickadee 815 says, "Hello, everybody." Mimi 422 says, "I think you should ask Outcast to be on his panel." Yeah, Outcast has asked me several times. He actually wants to interview me, so I appreciate that, Mimi 422. My intention is to stay up late one night and get interviewed by Outcast. Yes. And by the way, I don't condone the comment about Dago talking out both sides of the mouth, but Ivy Lights, I guess, thinks that's the case, and we can respect everybody's opinion to a certain extent. I get along with Dago, want to continue, hopefully, a kind of working relationship there, and especially, I want to have a working relationship ongoing with DA and our amazing guests and Robin. Mimi422 says, "In my opinion, Pav is a paid shill." Yeah, I kind of agree with you, folks. I kind of agree with you, especially when Pav refuses to do open debates and or real interviews most of the time, you know. He does hundreds of videos just going solo. That's crazy to me. Doesn't even make any sense. Unless you're an agent. I think he could be a misinformation, disinformation agent. I'm just saying, folks, we got to be careful. Well, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for your comments and or questions there. And again, Phoenix Rising 214, I really wish you an amazing 2026. I know you can do it. And I wish you success with friendships, everything going on in your life, your, again, social media platforms, your job, everything. And everybody else, I also wish, and happiness, of course. I wish you good health, and great happiness. I really do mean that. And everybody else, I wish you the same in a lot of respects. I wish you great health and happiness as well. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, Phoenix Rising, for being here too, of course. I hope everybody enjoy the rest of this day or evening or morning, wherever you are. I really appreciate your input. Thank you for tuning in to my channel. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And for certain people, I may have hurt your feelings this year. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm sorry for anybody that I've hurt. I've had some disagreements with certain people. I've had issues. I've had communication problems at times, and so I apologize. And I'm really sorry. I want everybody to be happy. I want to get along with people for the most part, and I don't want to hurt people's feelings. So if I've hurt anybody's feelings, which I think I have hurt a few people this year, I am sorry. I'm really sorry. Okay, what more can I say? And I'm going to try to be a better person. I've had my own issues. I won't give any real excuses though, other than that. But you know who you are, who I'm trying to address. So thank you, everyone. Have an awesome day. Appreciate it. This is Estes Crime Maze, Jason, and tune in to DA's show, folks. If for no other reason, hopefully you'll see me back on that show, and we'll kick some ass, and we'll challenge DA respectfully but firm. And I give him credit. He has shown a lot of cock swagger, in my view, and cocktail swagger. And I hope DA, though, dude, as part of that cocktail and cock swagger and courage and transparency and truth and openness with the IDAHO4 and other cases, dude, don't pull the plug on disallowing people like myself to talk about the extraction removal operation, this staged crime scene, which I think is obvious. Don't stop Joe from Stay the Deep. You know, he backed up a lot of what I was saying, that it was a real possibility that those students were extracted. Okay. So I thank Joe from Stay the Deep on that. DA, I know we can find that fine balance that you want to have on your show. Let's work that out. We can do it. And feel free to continue to have Day go on when you feel like it. I get it. He's a good positive contribution. And hopefully we'll knock it out of the park with me on the show as well. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And I appreciate your patience. And Robin, I'm sorry the times you sent me links to be on the show. Many times I couldn't show up. I apologize to DA as well and the other guests for what it's worth, and the audience. It's just I've been going through struggles. Sometimes even when I'm not injured, it's kind of a late night for me. You know, and I have early mornings. I help my sister on the farm, etc., etc. So anyway, enough said about me. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Till next time, over and out. Bye-bye. Bye. Are we still going?